Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Sound Horizons podcast, brought to you by TuneTrack. My name is Rick. I'm sure you knew that, but in case you didn't, now you do, and we're all better for it. Listen, today, I wish I could tell you we were going to do something different, break the mold, go somewhere we've never gone, but the whole thing is we just want to talk to the coolest people in the music business, and that's what we're going to do, and we're doing more of it today. You know today's guest. I know today's guest. We all have embraced today's guest. He is a member of our extended musical family. If you don't know him, I would ask you what rock you're living under, but that would be mean, and it would make some people very upset. And the last thing I want to do is make you upset. Although, to be fair, my personal motto is, I'm not happy until you're not happy. All right, with that being said, I'd like to bring on your friend and mine, everybody's favorite educator and songwriter. Please put your internet hands together for Bobby Huff, a.k.a. Dr. Bob, for those of you that don't read the credits. Hello, Mr. Huff.
Hey, Rick, it's nice to be here. But hey, I got to run. Let's do this another time. Thanks so much.
This will not be the first time, sir, that's happened. No, listen, I have to just... Your career is so fascinating to me that I have to jump in with the first question that I'm sure everybody is going to ask and has asked you 55 million times. And that is, how many times in a typical day or in the comment section of a video does someone ask you if you know Dan Huff? Just how many times? How many times? Well, is it constant?
It's actually not as much as I would think. But I know him very well because
I would hope. I was going to say, I would hope the family connection makes it good to know. But I figure when I first was turned on to your channel, I felt immediately bad for you because I was like, this guy's going to get asked about Dan Huff like all the time, just because, again, your cousin's career, like yours, is pretty prolific. So it's a family thing, clearly, because you Huff boys clearly tend to like Nashville and the music industry.
Dan was always... he's older than me. So as a kid, and his brother David, who was also a fantastic producer and drummer, and their father, Ron, was a fantastic string arranger. We all kind of got it from the music thing from my grandpa. My grandma and grandpa were like church musicians.
Okay.
And so it kind of came from that. But, obviously as a kid, having some cousins as cool as Dan and David, who were so great. I didn't live in Nashville. I lived in Indiana, but they lived in Nashville. And they were so generous with their time and their information. I'd call them all the time and say, what should I listen to? Who's the cool music? What do I need to do to get great? And on spring break in high school, all my friends, would go get drunk and late in Florida. I can say that on here, right?
Oh, you can say anything you want to. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a real thing.
Yeah. People get drunk and late.
They do that. That's verifiable. Yeah.
But I would call Dan up. This is when Dan lived in Los Angeles. And I started out as a drummer. So all I wanted to do was be Jeff Porcaro. He was my hero, the guy that played in Toto and Sessions. Yeah. And I'd say, Dan, can I come out there for spring break? And he and his wife, Sherry, would always say, absolutely. So I'd fly out there and spend the whole week following him around to sessions. And I saw, all kinds of incredible records being made, Lionel Richie and, all these Dan played on that were all, my favorite drummers would be at the sessions. So, he was always, Dan, besides the way he played guitar and et cetera, these guys were always really nurtured me and helped me along and really, showed me, like as a young kid, the first records I ever bought were Al Di Meola, Elegant Gypsy, and Steely Dan, Asia, and Gino Vanelli, Brother to Brother. Like, where all my friends were listening to Kiss,
as they should be. So
yeah, absolutely.
But when did you make the decision to go from Indiana or elsewhere to Nashville? When did you land in Nashville and say, okay, well, this is where I'm going to set up shop and start my career here?
Well, I have a broken road to Nashville. I grew up in Indiana, moved to Nashville for 1 year to go to Belmont University, where Dan and David went.
Nice.
And decided to quit to go pro early.
And
So I started getting some calls to play drums on sessions and all that, but did not want to be a country guy. And at that time, Nashville was pretty much country music or Christian music. And all of my favorite rock and pop and all that was LA. So I moved to LA for 5 years.
Wow.
And at that time, Dan and David lived out there. And I got into programming a lot, programming synths, programming drums, got into a band with a great singer named Mark Spyro, a great guitar player named Tim Pierce.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe some people might recognize that name.
Awesome YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tim's played on everything. And before him, the guitar player was Michael Thompson, who's also played on everything. Wow. And Randy Jackson on bass.
Jeez. Nice. I feel you,
so,
dog.
You know, I got to really, I really lucked out, and, I practiced hard and, did what it took to be in a room with these guys. And then I ended up going through divorce out there, and my wife moved back to Mississippi with my son, and who I love, my ex-wife now, no hard feelings.
Sure.
One of my friends that I knew from college, as soon as I got to Nashville, said, "Hey, look, there's this country group, Blackhawk, and they've just made a record. They need a drummer, and they're on Arista Records. Their first single is going like top 10. Are you interested?" So I auditioned for them, got the gig, and as soon as I got to Nashville, I never wanted to be a touring drummer, but my gosh, what an amazing opportunity to get in the music business and play and learn. And I'm still great friends with the guys in Blackhawk. I love those guys.
Those first 3 Blackhawk records in particular, at that point in time, in the way country was sort of rising and becoming this force that it kind of is today, I still listen to the first 3 Blackhawk records.
I would have had no idea you would even know who they are, Rick.
Oh man, and what's crazy is the third Blackhawk record, if I believe it's the third record, is the one that is not only got Mutt Lange credited as a songwriter, but like Desmond Child is on that record too. It's like I don't even know how much talent you can squeeze into one group. But yeah, again, I remember when those singles came out, I was drawn to the fact that ultimately they had a very, 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 what seemed to me as just a young listener, they were sympathetic to all of the cool country of the late 70s and early 80s, that sort of pop sensibility with the great harmonies like the Gatlin Brothers and the Oak Ridge Boys. And they were, but they also kind of understood that we were going to lose all of what we thought was cool rock and pop music from the 80s as the 90s progressed. So they kind of brought it all together. I always thought it was a crime. I mean, they were huge in country, but I always thought it was a crime they didn't cross over like Lone Star or some of these other bands, and they weren't bigger than they were.
Well, that's the perfect summation of who they were. Henry Paul was from the Outlaws, the 70s rock. Yep. Van Stevenson and Dave Robbins were 80s writers. Van Stevenson actually had a pop hit called Modern Day Delilah. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah. Wow.
But that's the guy in Blackhawk.
Holy cow.
And then with Mutt actually had a song on their second record as well that went #1 called Not Strong Enough to Say No.
Yeah, which is the hit single. Yeah.
Yeah, it went #1. So that's interesting. That's cool that you know that. I mean, it was the perfect segue to Nashville to me, because when I came back to Nashville, the only 2 Nashville artists I knew were Winona Judd and Garth Brooks. I didn't follow any of it. So It was a really great way to get in. And growing up in Indiana, I liked the Eagles, and John Mellencamp played all the time. So that's how I associated with Blackhawk.
Sure. Well, so you're playing drums in Blackhawk, where does this transition come into for you in Nashville, where you focus less on being a player and more on being a writer and working with other artists?
Well, as you know, on tour, you have almost all day off to do nothing but get in trouble. Yeah. And so I brought out a remote studio. I had an MPC 60 sequencer drum machine and an ADAT, and I would write songs, and I had a Yamaha mixer and would learn how to do demos and write songs and all that. And from that, I got a publishing deal.
Wow.
And at EMI. And so that kind of gave me confidence, I don't know, maybe I do know what I'm doing. I don't know. I just try to write what I like. And from there, that got into writing and producing. And as that continued to kind of snowball and whatever, that allowed me to kind of get off of the road and be more of a writer and a producer, and just working on stuff, not getting paid, but I really want to get good at this, so I got to put the time in. I was really driven. All my heroes, Mutt is one of my all-time heroes. In the 80s, I like guys like Peter Wolf and David Foster, and I was really enamored with producing, and every time I'd look in the back of a record, these names would show up. It's like, okay, what do these guys do, and how do they do it, and why? So that's how I just doing my own music because I loved it, and fortunately enough, the right people heard it, and I got a publishing deal. And then, when you get a publishing deal, there's people in these companies that can set you up, that have power and know people that can set you up to write with artists and, and snowball your career that way. So that's kind of how it started.
So did you, as you look back where you're at now and all the things that you've sort of been a part of, and do you ever wonder what the road less traveled of had you just stayed with the drums? Do you ever sort of look back and think, would this have gone where you wanted it to? Would you have enjoyed it as much? Or did you always sort of think that you were going to be more than just a drummer? And I mean that in the best. As a drummer myself, it's like I get that vibe. I understand it.
Well, I still play drums and absolutely love it. But if I was a drummer for a profession every day, the way that the technology has come is, I'm a drummer, and 3/4 of the stuff I produce and program, I program, because drum sounds are so easy. I can change the kick drum in the mix, or I can change the room the kick drum's in the mix.
Yeah.
So it's almost, God forgive me for saying this, but it's almost like, in some ways, playing in the studio drums is almost antiquated because that's all they had back then. Now there's so much experimenting you can do and change the snare out. Let's change the 7 cymbals right before mastering.
Yeah.
So I think if I'd have continued on at just being a drummer, really the only path is to play some studio stuff, whatever's left of it, but I would probably be in a band or be playing drums on the road for an artist.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of, those are the only two options.
And I didn't really want to be that guy. So honestly, I worked my butt off not to be. I would have still been grateful. Hey man, I'm grateful for every morsel I get in this thing.
Yeah.
Totally. Every morsel in life. But that's probably a lot of the guys that I know that play drums for a living, even the top studio guys, that business has dwindled so much. They're on the road.
Yeah. And again, to your point, one of the beautiful things about our industry, and that still is there, but you have to seek it out. But one of the more beautiful things of the late 80s, early 90s, even the early aughts, was to be a musician, there was a level of flexibility and freedom where you could pursue a number of different avenues. But to your point, if you want to earn a living now, unfortunately, some of those freedoms have been curtailed, and you are almost forced to be on the road. You kind of if I'm not on the road, I'm not earning a paycheck. And if I'm not earning a paycheck, they're going to come and take my house. So I guess I need to tour. And that's when you're sick, when you'd rather be with your family as life changes and things. So it can be a little daunting. And my heart goes out to some of my friends just like yours that are still out there, and they love it and they're grateful, but man, they wish that it wasn't a necessity to always be gone. It wasn't like, I can't say no to this gig. I have to take it because there isn't as much left. So I relate to that. But when you're doing this thing, you're Blackhawk, you come out, you can start writing, you sign the publishing deal. When did you say to yourself or feel like yourself, okay, I'm officially a writer now? Was it when you signed the deal, or was it when you had some success with one of your first songs?
I think next year I'll probably feel confident in what I'm doing. So we should probably get back together then and see how that goes.
It's how it normally is.
There's little indicators along the way. Obviously, with music, we all have a bit of insecurity. Are they going to like this? Is this as good as I think? Am I just crazy?
Yeah.
But I think when other people started to, and when I was younger, I cared a lot more about what people thought too.
Sure.
But
of course.
And I still do, but you know what I'm saying. I think when people sign me to a deal and we're like, hey, we believe in you, we think you have something here that is valuable. And you have to understand, all these companies, they look at your value as monetary,
of course,
value, which is fine. It's the music business. So when they started to sign me, and then they put their neck on the line, after EMI, I went to a smaller company called 1010 that was owned by Barry and Jewel Coburn, who were incredible publishers. And they hired a guy, Patrick Clifford, who was an incredible publisher. And when they started to stick their neck out and put their neck on the line and go, hey, they would call A&R guys or whatever, say, look, we really think Bobby needs to write with Shinedown. Then you start to go, all right, there's some belief here. If there's belief here, then I can do this. I can do this. So, affirmation really helped a lot.
Do you find, from your experience, even in your own career, do songwriters oftentimes, by the companies or the publishers they're working with or for, are they like actors where they get typecast? Like, this is the guy that writes this kind of song, or this is the guy that writes this kind of song?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, while I was having a real big run in rock music. I had a song on Shinedown's big record, Sounds of Madness.
Yep.
And then I had two big Papa Roach hits, Burn and Kick in the Teeth. And I worked with Drowning Pool and Halestorm. I was, I was in a good lick. I was very fortunate. And in the middle of all that, I wrote a song with two friends called Turn on the Radio that Reba McEntire recorded, and it went number one. But at that time, I was so worried about what are the rock people going to think if I have a country hit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all crazy now because it all works together now.
Sure.
So my name on the song is actually JP Twang.
Is that your nom de plume? Is that's your secret? Oh, so I love it.
The JP is for Jeff Porcaro, and the Twang sounds like Lang for Mutt Lang.
Yeah, nice.
So yes, absolutely. People do get typecast. I think sometimes it's important to get typecast because if you're doing what you love, and people go, get that guy for this, get that guy for this, and you're in a good role. But it can work obviously in the opposite too. That like, well, hey, Bobby's only a rock guy. We really don't need him for that. Or Bobby's only a country guy. He doesn't know how to. So it can be a blessing or a curse. But you're right. You're exactly right. You can get typecast.
So in that, a lot of songwriters obviously listen to this podcast because we talk to a lot of composers, songwriters, people that write music. And I think there's a mythology that still exists that there is, and I'm using air quotes, there is a way that the pros write songs, and it has to be this is how they all. And my experience and just talking with the pros and the few that I've had the opportunity to work with, that has not been my experience. Everyone seems to have a different approach to get to an end game that is ultimately expected to be a certain thing. The end game has to be presented a certain way, but getting there, I've found at least, isn't as regimented as some people might think, but no one's going to believe me because I'm the guy on this side of the microphone. So why don't you tell us how your experience with that process of songwriting as a professional works?
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, there's no way to do it. The mystery of it all is where do these melodies and lyrics come from anyway? I mean, you sit down and where does the inspiration come from? I don't know. No one really knows how to write a song. I think you get in touch with that side of you, and you may get an idea. And then once the idea comes, then there's a million different ways that writers flush out that idea. And there's mechanics that certain people gravitate to more than others. Writing with all kinds of different people. There's some people that like to have a track. Like, give me a banging track, man. And let's work on melodies over the track. Let's try a bunch of different melodies. We'll figure out the best melodies, and then we'll write lyrics to that. There's some people that go, man, I don't want all that. A real song to me is about an acoustic guitar and a melody, and let's just get that right, and then we'll do the track later. There's some people that, and then there's the collaboration aspect of it. When you're in a room with two other writers, you kind of have to figure out early on, oh, that person really is really a great lyricist. So let's let them be special at that. That person seems to really have a handle on the chords. Maybe I'll just come up with a drum loop and just be a facilitator and go, yeah, that's great, and whatever. So it's if you're collaborating, this is really important. Read the room. What's that girl good at, and what's that guy good at? And let me stay out of their lane, because the reason they're here is because they're good at that. So let me not be that person today. Let me be if there's not a lyricist in there particularly, then I'm going to try to write the lyrics. If there's not a track guy, then I'm going to try to make the track. So everybody comes at it a little bit differently, but however you come at it, however you come up with songs, if you're a guy or a girl that gets, I think he is in the car and just sings the melody into your phone, and you bring that to the right, or that's the seed to the song, then that's just as valid as everything. So do it your way.
How long, and this is a relative question to two, and again, I'm just in the professional realm. How long is too long to work on one song? Is there?
Man, you are a ball buster with questions, man.
That's my job.
You guys didn't warn me about any of this.
Well, here's the thing. We try to ask the questions that are interesting. Like, you have this amazing career and you have answers to questions other than, did you like music when you were 5? I get it, but I'm hoping you did, because this is what you chose for a career. But when we talk to in what we do, so on the tune track side, when we work with songwriters, and obviously our software has been developed and designed to facilitate songwriters. Our company started with songwriters. The guys that founded our company are still songwriters, and every decision made about every product has that magic word, songwriter, in mind. So one of the things that comes up quite frequently when it comes to songwriting is speed. And whether it's arbitrary or not is another story, but you'll hear some people say, well, if you don't write a song a day, you're not writing. Or if you're working on something and it's just not coming, just let it go and move on. So from your perspective, again, you're in a writing room with 3 other guys. How long is too long to work on one piece of music?
Well, first off, I don't just use your stuff for writing songs.
Sure.
There's stuff on all over the radio this is, okay, right, Brad Camp. There's stuff all over. I've got a #1 song in Australia right now. There's tune track stuff on that song. So if you think you're just going to be writing songs with the tune track stuff, that's great, and you will. But it goes all the way to the end for me. Now, to answer your question, there's different ways of looking at it. When you write songs like Mutt Lange, it's not done till it's awesome.
Sure.
So if you've got the whole song totally done and mixed, and he goes, you know what? I think we can beat the chorus. Then you start over. Oof. Now, or Led Zeppelin, you go rent a castle for 6 months and you do it until it's right.
Yeah.
Now, the music business, the kind of 9 to 5 writer thing, tends to be a little different. It tends to be, whether it's New York, LA, here, or London, it kind of generally tends to be, you meet at 11, somebody has an idea, you start to flush out the melody, or somebody has a title to a song. A lot of times it's written from a title,
Sure.
I hate every bone in your body but mine. Okay, great. Let's write that,
Yeah.
So, and usually kind of in the music business writing way is usually you start about 11. If you're not done by 4, something's wrong.
Sure.
Now, some writers will go, great, I love what we got today. Let's book another session and revisit it before we demo it or whatever. So it all kind of depends on what side of the music business you're looking at it. I mean, if you're in a band, you might be writing all day on the road on tour for your next record, and you might be able to take 2 weeks on a song to perfect it and come back and revisit it. There was a famous writer, there's still a famous writer, Diane Warren. She wrote I Don't Want to Miss a Thing by Aerosmith. She wrote all the big 80s rock hits. You know who she is. And she would write songs a lot, mostly on her own. And then she would record it on a cassette, drive around in the car and listen to it and figure out what's wrong with it. Where is this not hitting? Where would people tend to like fall off their interest? So there's that side of things that really take the time to make it come to fruition. And then there's the other kind, which the music business is kind of like, right. One of them will stick and we'll get a hit. You throw 200 against the wall, odds are we'll get 1 or 2 cut.
Sure.
And there's not a right or wrong way. Is that any answer to your question at all?
Well, there is. I mean, I think it's really about the expectation. I think what you've outlined it quite well. It's like, look, we have to always remember that the music industry is very different than making music. They are two very, very different things. And even though their paths cross, they don't have anything to do with one another in many instances. So
you're so right.
There is something to be said about the fact that if you're a young person or even an old person thinking, I want to give songwriting a try, if you're going to enter into a landscape, I always tell people, you wouldn't go to a Ford motor plant company and not know anything about how the assembly line worked or how they expected cars to be put together by the end of the day. You couldn't go in there and say, well, I make cars in my garage. You can make cars in your garage, and they would probably think that's awesome. But if you're going to show up to the factory, you better know how the factory works, and you can't complain that it's a factory. So it's nice to hear that. I think there has to be a level of gravitas someone in your position has that's a music fan and a lover, but that also wants to not have to do anything other than make music for a living. There's a sacrifice that has to be made. And I think a lot of people put their feet down when it comes to songwriting and be like, well, this is how it has to be. And it's like, I don't know that that's true. To your point, you as a drummer, I think also have a unique perspective, because as you're studying and becoming this player and this drummer and you're trying, but like the world for our instrument changes before the world for all the other. Before there were amp modelers, there were electronic drums. Like our instrument and capability was on the chopping block from a replacement standpoint in 1980 when Roger Nichols invented the Wendell Jr. It was like already like, and what's great, I tell this story all the time about Steely Dan's Gaucho record. And I talk about how that was a time when they had so much money to make records that they actually had enough money to give Roger Nichols, and I'm not kidding, $160,000 to build a computer to trigger one-off samples from performances of the greatest drummers in the world that were already on that record. They could have had any one of these drummers, Jeff Porcaro, Bernard Purdie, play these songs because they were already on the record, and they chose a machine. And it gives you sort of this insight into the fact that, there's this clock. If you are in a certain aspect of our business, obsolescence is guaranteed if you don't grow with it. So when you talk about working with loops and you talk about the validity of these different types of writing styles, I think there are a lot of guys and a lot of gals out there that are the old school, like you had alluded to. Like if it doesn't come from an acoustic guitar or a piano and just a vocal, it's not a song. And I get that. Fair enough. But I don't know that that's an accurate representation of how things actually get done from a commercial or professional standpoint. So it's just nice. We appreciate you being candid. Obviously, we don't want you to give away how all the sausage is made. We need hard lessons to be learned by people on their own. We need people to go and fail, so they get better.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I'm lucky enough right now to be working on a record that Mutt's producing, which blows my mind. I've not met him because he's in Switzerland and I'm doing it here. It's a great new band called, oh my gosh. I'll think of it in a second. It's one of my best friends, Tommy Henriksen, who plays guitar for Alice Cooper.
Okay.
And he and Mutt are producing his record.
Wow.
And he told me, and I'm just doing background vocals, and I could kind of do that Mutt background. I've studied the crap out of Mutt, so I try to implement that stuff. But the one thing, Crossbone Scully,
There you go.
Go listen to Crossbone Scully. It's old school rock, AC/DC. But one thing that he said that Mutt's an older gentleman. Mm-hmm. He's been around. He's had a lot of success. Yes. But even a guy like that who could say, this is the way it's done. I mean, come on, look, my Grammys are telling me it should be this way.
Right.
He could be that guy. But he stays open to everything. Stay open. If it's drum samples and it sounds good, that's okay. If it's a live drummer and it sounds good, that's okay. If it takes Steely Dan, a year to make Gaucho or Asia, that's okay. If you happen to get it quick, that's okay. We're in such a, there's nothing that we do makes sense. It's art. So, it's done when it's done. And however it's done, if it achieves the sound that the artist wants, no matter what kind of instrument, how long it took, or whatever, if you have the budget, boom, congratulations, you did it. And it's hard enough to get it great anyway, no matter how long you take,
So as a human being who's been in the industry again and seen all the changes and experienced everything, but also as a writer, which predominantly has been a very, very kind of unique, writers and publishers have the opportunity, as do producers, but you take a benefit from the long game of a song and the long game of its success through the credit and the mechanical licensing and the royalties. Do you have personally, and again, not in any dark way, but do you have a strong feeling about the state of streaming right now and, how it's made being just a career songwriter a little more difficult financially for a lot of guys based on the way guys are compensated?
Of course. And I can't afford to care.
Yeah.
Because, hey, man, I grew up when there were albums, cassettes, and 8-tracks.
Yeah.
And then CDs. And so I've been through, and as a fan and as a kid, and then through every iteration of this until now. And here's my opinion. The more that I would think about that, and the more I would think about how things used to be and how they are now, it's only upsetting. And if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And the more I look at the way the music business has turned out, the more depressing it could be. So I'm going to put that to the side and I'm going to go, okay, what do I do to not feel that way? What do I do to not feel depressed about it? How do I jump in? How do I maybe I don't make as much money as I used to, but how do I stay creative? And what do I do financially, artistically, to overcome those dark emotions that I could have if I sat around and thought how crappy it was all the time?
Sure.
So I've started a YouTube channel. I'm about to put my own record out through the YouTube channel. Now my clients aren't just in Nashville, LA, New York, London, or whatever. I'm working with people from Singapore and South America and whatever. So just like we talked about, hey, if it's not a real acoustic guitar, that's not right. Or if that's not if that's not a real guitar amp and that's a fake guitar amp, well, then that's not really good. You have to stay open. You have to bend so you don't break. So my attitude about it is dig in, man. Figure it out, Bobby. Figure it out. You want to look at it this way, you're not going to like it. You want to look at it this way, you'll stay creative and you'll find a way through. Because it has affected me. It's affected everyone.
Sure. Well, and I want to transition.
Taylor Swift. It's
I don't think I think she's impervious to everything. I have one more songwriting specific question to ask you, but you've already done the segue for me, because then I want to talk about how you're this dude that's writing these songs and you have all this experience and these career highs, this great stuff. And for whatever reason, your life's not complicated enough. So you go and start a fucking YouTube channel out of nowhere, which is like, that's a full-time job in and of itself. But before you answer that question, hold on. Last question about songwriting from your vantage point. Can you overwrite a song?
Oh, heavens, yes. Yes. You can over anything a song. You can overmix it. You can overwrite it. What I would say about that is, if you have the instinct to know that you've overwritten it or overmix it, then your instincts will lead you back to where it was the best.
Okay. All right.
I think the thing, there's a lot of writers, there's a lot of writers too that are just lyricists.
Sure.
And I think sometimes it's easy to hear a lyric that's overwritten because every line is clever. And hey, that's cool, man. I mean, that can be of worth. But sometimes you go, hey, look, it's not a poem, it's a song. You know, and sometimes those writers would look down on, like, you know, Let's Groove Tonight by Earth, Wind and Fire, or Back in Black. Because they're like, well, what's that mean? Or whatever. It's like, it's music. So I think you can definitely overwrite to the point where the song becomes too much of you and it's too hard for a listener to get close to. Most of the time, I think that's the lyric. But then again, there's artists that sing songs where every line is clever, and you go, man, that's really well done. So, write to your taste. If you think that you've overwritten it, go back to the point where you think you didn't, and that's your instinct. That's your gift to know that's where it was right. Okay. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. So you just have to, ultimately, it's a process of knowing yourself. And that only comes through just doing it. You just do it, you go do it, and you got to figure it out. Okay. Again, speaking, going, and doing it. So here you are, you have enough going on in your life with music, and you decide not only are you going to start a YouTube channel, which in and of itself, full-time job, but you're going to educate people. You're actually going to share a lot of the experiences you have, a lot of techniques. And I think it goes without saying, which means we're going to say it. You love you some Mutt Lange production techniques. You love that. And you've shared so much of that. I know people love that. And I'm curious, my first question would be, now that you're sort of well established into your YouTube channel, obviously you're writing career, and now you're working with Mutt. Does he have any idea that you share some of his tics, what word am I looking for? Tricks. There's an R in there. Tricks and tips with your fan?
Tommy has told me. Tommy is the lead singer and the brains behind Crossbone Scully that Mutt is producing. And Tommy has told me, Mutt really digs your stuff, and he digs your channel, and he thinks you're funny. Because, you know, I put some humor in there,
of course, too. Yeah.
So I actually have Tommy. Mutt texted Tommy that, and Tommy forwarded me the text of Mutt, and I copied it, and I have it in a little frame.
So I was just going to say, it's mission accomplished. You can die
Come
now.
on,
Everything's
man,
good.
I can die now.
That's it. So, but when you're choosing a topic for your channel, how are you going about which production techniques you want to share? Do you have an agenda? Like, look, listen, I've often wondered, because you hear a lot of music as well. I mean, because you've put yourself out there, you're to your credit, which I think is pretty awesome. YouTube makes everyone a little closer, and I think you're easily accessible by choice. You've allowed people to reach out to you. So I'm sure you hear a lot of music. I've always been curious if you address some of your production technique issues or topics that you're going to teach about based on, for lack of a better term, deficiencies you may hear in a lot of mixes you're getting, or things, you know, are people sending in requests? How do you kind of decide you're going to focus on vocals this week or drum stacking this week? Or, I mean, you've covered so much information. It's insane.
Well, thanks. I appreciate you watching it.
It's insane.
Basically, I mean, I usually shoot and edit my videos on Wednesday, and I put them out on Thursday at 2:15 Central Time. And right now, I have no idea what tomorrow's going to be. Nice. And today's a Tuesday.
Yes, it is.
Usually, I'm working on so much music during the week, whether I'm producing or mixing or whatever. I usually find something in a song that I've got that I've got to either fix, whether it's, I mean, it could be someone else's song or even one of my own, or there's a problem, or this is how I get that to speak, or this is too much compression or whatever. And I'm pretty fortunate that I'll run into something on my own and I'll go, oh, wow, this is kind of a stumper. I'll just do this as a video tomorrow. So a lot of it is that, the Mutt stuff, I've studied his stuff so much, or a lot of producers to try to be better myself, or I'll ask people that have worked with other people, or I've been in a lot of sessions, that I've been really fortunate and lucky to have a lot of information from a lot of people that were unbelievable. So if I don't have something during the week that I'm trying to fix, I'll draw on something that they do, and I'll show exactly how to do that, because like you said, the YouTube makes the world small. I mean, so I try to impart things to people that live in the middle of Iowa or Wyoming or whatever, that don't have access to these people that I've been fortunate enough to work with, and go, hey, here's how they do it.
So what was harder, starting out your songwriting career or starting out your YouTube channel? Mentally for you? Well, because they're both pretty thankless at the beginning. Both are incredibly thankless.
Yeah. Well, the YouTube thing was weird. I had no intention, need whatsoever to start a YouTube channel. Never thought about it one time in my whole life. And I was having my morning coffee and searching through YouTube like we all did. What you do, what's on there this morning? And this guy came across my channel, Rick Beata. Man, this guy's good. I don't even remember what the video was. And I was like, I want to watch another one. I'll watch another one. I was like, man, this guy is amazing. He knows everything from classical music to the snare side head that Lars uses in Metallica. This guy knows everything.
Right.
So I thought, I need to figure out how I know his name. So I Googled him and found out he'd worked with Shinedown too.
Mm-hmm.
So I called Shinedown's A&R guy, and I said, can I get Rick Beato's number? So I called him and he picked up.
Wow.
And I was like, Rick, this is Bobby Huff. We don't really know each other, but hey, Bobby, how you doing? Yeah, I know you. We've never met. And we talked, we talked about Steely Dan and, all that stuff. And I said, like we do, like, hey man, if you're ever in town, give me a ring. Here's my number, finger gun, hey.
Exactly.
And like 3 weeks later, he calls me up and says, hey, Bobby, I'm in Nashville.
Wow.
I said, where are you? And he was right down the road from the studio I was working at. He came by the studio and we talked for 3 hours, just music, drummers, producers, songs,
awesome.
Steely Dan, whatever. And at the end of it, there's a great conversation. He said, Bobby, you're like a brother from another mother. You need to start a YouTube channel. I was like, whoa, what? I don't have a camera. I don't have a video camera, nothing. He said, all you got to do is do what we're doing. Be excited about music. So I called my wife and said, you never believe what happened. It's the strangest thing. So she said, you should do it. Why not? It'll get you out of the studio for a day a week. It'll give you something else to do. So I bought some cameras. I bought a camera, some lights. And every time I'd walk my dog, I'd listen to YouTube about how to light things and record or whatever. And I shot my first video, and I sent it to Rick. I said, hey man, what do you think? And he watched it and he called me back in 10 minutes. He said, you're not ready. I said, okay. He said, you need to do this, 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 and this. So I took like another week and shot a new one and sent it to him. And he said, congratulations, you're a YouTuber. Now all you got to do is keep putting out videos to grow your audience. You've got to keep consistency is like, keep putting them out there. So that's basically how it started. I didn't know anything about monetization or anything. I didn't have any expectations. So in a way it was less pressure because I didn't.
Right.
I wasn't going to feed my family by it. I just thought really cool. And I want to show what I know, and this would be fun. And it's grown pretty well. And I had no expectation of it from people all over the world saying, hey, will you produce my record? Will you mix my record? I didn't even think about that. I didn't even know that was, I don't know, never crossed my mind. So it's been a real blessing. it is work. You got to stay current. You got to come up with topics and all that. But I mean, hey, everything's work, right?
Yeah, well, that's why that's where we get the phrase worthwhile, right? I mean, it's worth the while.
Yeah.
It takes time. And are you surprised?
It was work getting my hair ready for this morning, you know?
And it's fantastic, I'm going to say. How did you come up with the Dr. Bob moniker? How did that little intro thing, which is my favorite part, is the surgical, the fact that the very first time I saw one of your videos, I'm like, wait a minute. I already knew who you were as the drummer in Blackhawk. So I was already familiar with you. I'd known, and again, as a lifelong Kiss fan, I didn't even bother you about your Gene Simmons stories. So my point is, I was already familiar with who you are, and I'm like, I turned the first time I watched one of your videos, I'm like, this grown ass man got himself a green screen and an actual surgical. And I'm like, this guy committed to the bit. I was in 500% when the minute I saw the scrubs, I was like, all right. I'm like, and then when I saw sort of the Grand Theft Auto lettering, I was like, this guy's so in 100%. And then you're talking, I forgot the verse when I saw you were talking about something Mutt Lang related. I'm like thinking to myself, this is gutsy, because there are now two generations of music fans and listeners that probably don't even know who that is. Not because they wouldn't want to or wouldn't be interested, and not because they haven't heard Def Leppard, but because the culture of music is different now. And no one has got a big physical product at home reading through things, or their imagination isn't on display with the album art, so that they have no reason to go further. So he's talking about a guy that only people our age are going to know about, but thank God he's talking about it, because for whatever reason, no one was talking. Out of all the things you could talk about on YouTube and the production secrets and these great records, you always hear the same stories about the Hysteria record or Muttley. You always hear, painstaking detail. It's literally like boilerplate at this point in time. I don't even know if any of the stories are true, right? So it was so refreshing, but I thought to myself, he doesn't have to do this. Like, I had known that you had a career, like, not like you were just starting out. Like, this guy's an established talent in these fields, and here he is choosing to subject himself to the ridicule, criticism, and nonsense of the internet by choice. I'm like, I need to understand this man's ethos. Were you surprised at the reception? Because I generally don't ever find myself in the comment section of anything, because if I'm being honest, I just don't care. But when I do scroll through, I've scrolled through, it's like everyone is incredibly supportive and really appreciative in your video. Was that something you weren't ready for, is it still kind of like blow you away, humble wise?
Look, everything good in life that happens blows me away, and I'm grateful for everything. I mean, there's definitely some haters, and I think the haters are funny. I love it. Like, I don't get bent out of shape over, like, look, if you don't have to watch,
exactly.
And there's been some people that have been on there that have, a lot of comments where you'll say, that's great, I do it this way. And I'm like, holy cow, really? Maybe I should try that. It's a community of people that are smart, or that like, I've gotten a lot of things from people on there. And by the way, Gene Simmons is one of the most polite people I've ever worked with.
Oh yeah. He's
super polite. But no, the doctor thing, I thought, I just want to have fun and be funny, and like, life's too serious. I'm going to show some serious things, but who wants to hear from Bobby Huff? You don't want to see me on a coffee mug. Well, what if the doctor? So yeah, I'm a grown man that puts on scrubs and a scrub hat and the stethoscope, which you never wear in surgery anyway.
No,
and I just, come on, man, let's just all have a little fun here,
To me, it is really just indicative of that, that commitment to taking me out of my day. A lot of YouTube channels, and this is, so Duck, here comes some love.
Oh, thanks.
So a lot of YouTube channels ultimately try to present themselves as a continuation of, or logical insertion of your day. And for me, if I want to watch something, I do want to be entertained. I kind of want to forget about what I was doing beforehand and where I'm at. And just that little bumper before you teach me something, instead of just going straight into the screenshot, it's like, okay. It's like, yeah, I kind of clear my head out, and I'm like, we're going to learn how Queen stacks vocals today. Let's do it. And a lot of times, So many of your videos in my house, my wife can totally attest to this because I force her to watch them with me because I'm that guy. So we'll be sitting at the TV.
I'm sorry.
We'll be watching the I'm like, no, shh. And then we're watching the video and she'll hear me mumble. After you go through the process, she'll hear, I fucking knew it. It's like I'm already like, he just confirmed. I knew it. I knew that's what was going. And that's just a great part of the process. And again, for what it's worth, out of all of the horrible YouTube content I subject my wife to from our industry, and believe you me, it's a lot, she loves watching your videos too. And it's great. I mean, I think there's something to be said. It's the same thing with Rick Beato. I think there is something about you that is so genuine that I think that's why we can all receive all that information. I think anytime someone gets on and is hard-nosed, like, well, this is how you set an 1176, because we don't have enough videos on that. I don't know. Has anyone ever given me that suggestion? Yes. No one talks about setting your 1176, Bobby. Maybe that's a topic for your next, but I mean, so anytime someone comes at you with, this is how the pros do it, it's an audible laugh. I'm like, I don't think you understand what a professional musician or artist is in any way, shape, or form, but sure, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, so as you look at the whole world, so you have this YouTube, you've created this secondary career now. You're still songwriting, producing. What you alluded to the fact that sort of the roads kind of all merge with the YouTube channel, which is great too. You get new production and songwriting clients. You're releasing a record. I'm sure you're gonna promote it through your channel. What's left? Where do you go from there? I mean, are you always looking for the next thing still, or are you like, I've got enough?
I mean, I still love working with artists, producing and writing and stuff like that. A lot of my energy now, I mean, I've been blessed to have a career in serving others, serving their art, producing for them, playing drums for them, mixing for them, helping their idea come to fruition the way they hear it in their head. And, you know, that's basically the gig. You know, they've entrusted their music and their art with you to help them bring it out the way that they want it to be. And along the way, I've kind of figured out there's another side of me that I haven't been able to explore because I've always been in service of others. So I'm going to do something that if I could listen to the radio all day long, I wish it was this kind of music. So I'm working on I've recorded 19 songs. I'm just finishing up the last one, and I'm going to start putting it out. It's very, you know, they say you never get over the music of your childhood. It's always your favorite. And this stuff is very it's very Beatles, ELO, Queen, you know, the stuff when I was in middle school and high school that made me feel that way. It's never really left me, you know? And so I'm making a record that kind of harkens back to the early 70s pop rock, maybe early 80s, some 60s in there. And it's really been a nice, I'm able to go do something the way that I want it to be.
Sure.
I mean, I don't want to go on tour. I don't want to be a rock star. I don't want to be a pop star. I'm not one. Yeah. I mean, but the cool thing about it is, you know, you can release music that you believe in. And, you know, I do have quite a lot of YouTube followers. So there's a way to get it out there and be my authentic self. And the best part about it, whether it takes off or not, doesn't really matter, because I'm so grateful for to be able to make music that really is the real me. So that's what I've been working on.
Nice. Well, everyone's going to be looking out for that, obviously, now. So as we wind down, I want to ask you a couple questions. Whenever I talk to a songwriter, I always ask, from your vantage point, because there's no right or wrong answer, who's one of the most underrated or underappreciated songwriters of the past 2 or 3 decades?
You're brutal, man.
Yeah, I know. It's hard. There's a lot. Brutal. There's a lot. I mean, because there are a lot of great writers.
People like this are underappreciated, but they might be underappreciated now. because people don't know about them in this genre. Maybe Burt Bacharach.
Yeah.
Maybe the band Jellyfish.
Sure.
I still think Paul McCartney's underrated, even though he's got all the accolades you need. I mean, that guy's I think, honestly, David Lee Roth.
He's a great songwriter. I mean,
okay, you know, to have those guitar parts and that rhythm section, playing that, but having David Lee Roth know exactly what to hang on top of that, that's brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, well, and that's another 3-hour conversation, but one of my favorite things about David Lee Roth, both in Van Halen and on his own, is he knows the economy of words. He understands how to take these bigger, crazy ideas that you listen to it and you're like, what the heck? But it's like, voomp, in just the, not only that, but he is acutely aware, which a lot of writers, to your point from earlier, aren't. He's acutely aware of how to write for himself and the way he presents word, the way he sings, his vocal range. He's not, I couldn't imagine being an outside songwriter trying to write something for David Lee Roth to sing because he has such a unique deliverance style. But again, it's like all of the wisdom in the world wrapped up in like comedy, but it's like tongue in cheek, but it's also serious. And then you're like, what just happened? And you feel like you've had a spiritual awakening. That's a very unique skill.
It is. And, you know, people think of him as Diamond Dave because he's the greatest performer.
Period.
But man, the melodies that he hung on those things to me are in a different way, but every bit as valuable as what Robert Plant did with Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
I mean, how did you think of that over that? That's amazing. You know?
Well, so would you prefer to write with someone, or do you like writing on your own? Or do you like them both the same?
Both the same.
Both the same.
And they're different skills. Writing in the room with people, team player, like I said, figure out what their strengths are, then try to fit in. The other great thing about writing with people, and this is super important for songwriters out there, even if you're nervous about, oh God, I got to go up in the room with these people, and what if I crash and burn and they come up with all the ideas? Well, guess what? That will happen. I mean, I've been in rooms where the other two people, it's usually a 3-way write, usually kind of, and I'm just sitting there watching it happen, knowing to stay out of the way. And then there's other times where me and someone else and I are on fire and the other person isn't. So it is like watching. So don't be worried about that. Every writer knows that sometimes it's not your day and sometimes it is. And if you're in the room, if there's 3 people in the room, the general rule is it doesn't matter who comes up with how much, it's 33 1/3 each, percentage wise. But the other thing I want to say about co-writing is, even if you don't get a great song, even if you write for 2 weeks and never get a great song with co-writers, it's so important to watch their process. How did they come up with that line? Oh, they, instead of saying it's raining outside in a song, they said, you know, you can't fight the clouds. You know, like, how are they coming up with these different angles lyrically? And man, they went somewhere in the chorus that's different, and it will help you in other co-writes, and it makes you better writing yourself as well. So just like being in a band, or being in it, like other people do things that you go, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. So it's important to do both. It's really important to do both.
So I want to wind down with this, because this was the one question that I think a lot of people are curious about relative to you. This isn't the rule of thumb we're trying to establish here, but for yourself, for you, how many songs do you think you might write in a given year yourself at this point in time in your career? Are you an everyday writer, every week writer? Is it as needed?
It used to be that I would write 3 days a week. Now, my time is much more divided between producing and writing with artists that I produce, rather than so many just let's go write a song and see if we can get it cut. The writing, hey, can we go write a song and get it cut? That's a lot harder to do now, because most of the cuts Well, a cut meaning that you get a song on a record.
Right.
For people who don't know what that means, sorry. Most the time you get a placement on a record, you're writing either with the producer or the artist as well. It's harder. Back in the day, people they would accept songs like, wow, that sounds like a great song. We want to record that. Now, most of the time they would say, wow, that song sounds like a great song. Let's write one like that. And the artist and the producer would write a song like yours. Not that outside cuts are obsolete, but that part of the business is not so much prominent anymore. So I tend to write more with artists that I'm producing, with other rights scattered in.
Mm.
But I would write for years and years. I would write three songs a week.
Okay,
or co-write 3 songs a week. Yeah.
Sure. All right. I want to end with this because I think this will actually carry a lot of weight coming from you. So this is your entire world rests on your answer to this one question. So choose wisely. Now,
but I gotta run.
Yeah, exactly. You can. Here's the only caveat: you can't use Paul McCartney or John Lennon. So now I've just removed those. Now that's it. Now it's real. Shit just got real, as we say here in Chicago. So if you were going to encourage young writers to go listen to any other specific or particular writers from history other than the Beatles, which is the obvious answer, or Zeppelin, I'm going to pull them out too, or Jagger and Richards, you can't have any of the partnerships. You're going to say, hey, here would be a great place to start.
It's a lot of rules, man.
It is. It's
a
so
lot
hard.
Of rules.
I grew up Catholic. You're going to have to deal with it. So,
that's hilarious.
Yeah. You're going to give them like, hey, this would be a great starting point to just pay attention to what's going on with this songwriting. The art of the song that you're listening to, it can be any other artist than the kind of usual suspects. And to be fair, they're the usual suspects for a reason. They've all contributed to what is in major ways. Again, whether it's Brian Wilson and the Beach, these guys were writing songs before any of us really knew what songwriting was going to be in our culture. But who would be some places or even some specific songs where you say, hey, check these out on your journey because there's something in here you can glean from listening to these songs?
I'm going to give you 2 songwriters.
Okay.
To go listen to.
All right.
Because if you're a young songwriter, these would be 2 people to pay attention to how they craft songs, how they come up with a very, very accessible melody, and lyrically, how they approach a lyric and how they say things cooler than what you would say or what I would say. One of them, and whether you like this kind of music or not, has nothing to do with it. You're going to school, you're getting inside these people's heads, how they write and how they come at things. And they're so good at what they do. Just Google Craig Wiseman and go out and listen to songs that he has written or been a co-writer on. And just the landscape that he creates with lyrics is different. And even if you don't write like he does, it will open up your mind to a bigger box. The other one we talked about earlier is Diane Warren. And the reason I say Diane Warren is because the way she write with Aerosmith and Bon Jovi and all these bands.
Yeah.
Everyone. And she would create melodies and choruses that were so memorable that even if you don't want to write things that memorable, there's a lot to learn from that. Like, why is she so successful? Why did everyone want to record her songs for so long? Because these songs and these simple melodies would stick in people's heads. And I think those 2 things are important for any writer to have in the vocabulary. You'll end up doing it differently than them. You may not like the kind of music that they write or whatever, but those to me are like, that's incredible schooling to help you in your writing.
You heard it here first. You heard it. Well, you didn't hear it first. I'm sure he's mentioned some of those names before, but I'm going to pretend you heard it here first, and we're going to take total credit for delivering it to you. So you're welcome. Bobby Huff, we could go on for hours and hours and hours, but that would be bad for both of us. So I'm just going to say thank you. I mean, we're fans first and foremost. So one of the kind of ethos of our company, TuneTrack, is we only work with and hang out with and talk to people we're fans of. So we're fans. So just thank you for taking the time and hanging out with us and just being a part of this big thing we're all a part of. We are internally grateful, love you to the moon and back. And as I'd say to everyone that we talk to, if there's anything we can ever do for you, the answer is yes. Just shoot me a call or an email. But man, just thanks. And please don't stop sharing all the information. If for any reason, anytime you feel you don't want to do a video, just realize Rick probably has to aggravate the shit out of his wife this week. And if I don't do a video, the terrorists win. He won't have those tools to do so. So I have to do a video for that reason alone.
All right. It's all for you. Well, first off, I want to thank you thanks for being so kind to me and including me in your world. And thanks for paying me $20,000 to do this. I mean, that's above and beyond.
The going rate. Yeah.
No, thanks so much. And man, your questions are killer. I mean, really,
thanks, man.
Really insightful, amazingly insightful. And I appreciate where your headspace is. I never knew you this well. I mean, we've talked and texted and whatever, but this has been really great. And I appreciate you letting me on and all the support you've given me. And I'm very, very grateful, Rick. Thanks so much.
The next time I'm in town, I will finger gun you and we will have dinner and we will make sure there's a large contingent of people within earshot so we can just gloom on about Jeff Porcaro for eons and decades and decades. And then when they think we're done, we'll be like, and then about Jeff, and then we're just going to keep going. So
absolutely.
All right. Well, listen, you have a wonderful rest of your day and we will talk to you soon. I'm going to turn this way for a second and tell these people goodbye. And then you and I can connect. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages. And if you are of all ages, who told you could watch this podcast? Check with your parents first, please. It's adult in nature. Just kidding. It's music. If we've offended anyone, hurt anyone's feelings, or upset anyone, although that was part of the plan, certainly not the primary plan, more of a secondary plan. Thank you for making me feel like I've accomplished something today by doing that. But in all seriousness, we appreciate you more than you'll ever know. Thank you for your time, your energy, and your effort. We're looking forward to the next one where we talk to another amazing human being. We haven't let you down yet, and we don't plan on doing it anytime soon. As always, you've been listening to the Sound Horizons podcast, brought to you by TuneTrack. My name is Rick, and I look forward to hearing you, seeing you, or just being in your universe the next time I get the chance. Have a great day.